Welcome back SQL enthusiasts. I'm Himavant. In this chapter 5 of Star Agile's exclusive SQL learning series, we'll be discussing about the different data types in SQL. If you have missed any of the previous videos, please do click on the link above. If you are someone looking to master SQL and earn a professional certification, you can go through our DevOps course link which is attached in the description. Before we get started, make sure you subscribe to the channel and hit that notification bell so that you don't miss any of the upcoming episodes. In this video, we'll be discussing about what and all the most commonly used data types and how to specify those data types over here. Okay, so first talking about the data types over here. So previously we have learned about the basic commands of how to create a table and how to insert the data into a table and how to fetch the data out from a table, right? So at the time of creation of the table, we have clearly specified over there what and all the different data types we used while creating the columns is int and char, right? So likewise, what and all the different data types we have, we'll look into the elaboration of the most commonly used data types. First one is numeric data types. Okay, so in the numeric data types, for whole numbers, okay, so for whole numbers we have certain data types over here. Next, for the fractions we have another data types. Next, for the character data, to insert any character data, we have a data types which are like char and VARCHAR. Next, to insert the date data, we have a data types like date time. Next, time, timestamp, date, year. So these are all the 5 different type of date data types what we have, guys. Okay, so numerical data, character data, date data. Okay, so this is the mostly the what is the data what we insert. Every other data will come into one or the other data type here. Okay, either it can be a numeric or character or date data. So character means any alphanumerical data or a string data or else a character data. If you want to insert, you can use the character data types. For the numerical data, we have for whole numbers we have separate data types, and even for the fractions also we have separate data types over here. These are the most commonly used data types over here. Now out of this, first we'll discuss about what is this data types we have to insert the whole numbers. Whole numbers. Okay, so in whole numbers we have a different flavors of data types which are not int. First, initially it will start with tiny int, small int, medium int, and big int. So to insert the integer data itself, we have different flavors in whole numbers. So in the integer, so to insert any integer data, we have different flavors in integer itself. So and why we have this different flavors of integer is the size what it is allocating. Okay, so previously when we created a table and when I specified student name, I gave a data type as char and I mentioned that okay, so the character length should be 30 itself. The same way here, when you specify an integer data types, Here also you need to allocate some of the other space, that the whole space cannot be allocated. Some of the other certain space need to be allocated for each and every record in that particular column, right? And what is the space, how what it allocates over there, it all differs this different data types of this integers, which is tiny int. When you give a data type as tiny int for a column, it will allocate a memory of 1 byte. Next, if you are allocating a data type as small int, okay, if you are specifying a data type as small int, then it will allocate a data size of 2 bytes. Next, medium int, when you are specifying a data type as medium int, then it will allocate a space of 3 bytes. Next, int, it will allocate 4 bytes. Big int, it will allocate 8 bytes case. A very huge value, okay, almost a length of 64 digits or 45 digits. So that is the biggest number. Any huge values if you want to insert, then you can use this big int guys. Okay, these are all the different flavors of integers we have over here, and 1 byte, 2 bytes, 3 bytes, 4 bytes and 8 bytes is the space what it is allocating based on the data type or based on the integer data type what you use. Okay, so let's understand this, what is this 1 byte and why it is useful to give a different data type based on the column or the based on the data what you insert into a column is. Let's say for example, we have a column called as age. Okay, so for age, let's say if I give a data type as int. Okay, if I give int, then how much space is allocated for each and every record in that particular column? 4 bytes. Okay, 4 bytes of memory is allocated. Now out of this 4 bytes over here, what can be the maximum number I can insert when I give a data type as tiny int? Means basically in 1 byte, what is the maximum number I can insert? Okay, so now I am talking about the number, not the length, a number. So in 1 byte, I can accommodate or I can allocate a maximum number which is 255 guys. So it's not related to the SQL over here. So on the terms of this basic computer knowledge, you can say that 1 byte is of 8 bits. Okay, so 1 byte, how much it is? 8 bits. So 2 power 8 minus 1. Okay, so it will be around 256 minus 1, which will be 255. Okay, so this is how it came for 1 byte as 255. So we don't want to go through this computer knowledge over here and don't get confused. So we are discussing about SQL itself. Okay, so on a basic note or else a normal terminology wise, if you see, 1 byte can allocate or 1 byte can hold a maximum number which is 255. Okay, it's like in the binary format. So when you are storing into a 1 byte over there, 01100 might be for number 1. Okay, so this is all different binary formats and all. So we don't want all of it. Simple, we'll say that 1 byte can hold what can be the maximum number? 255. Okay, so likewise if you see, for the age, if I give a data type as int, it is how much space it is allocating? 4 bytes of memory. So when it is 4 bytes, it is very huge, not just only 255 over there, more than that number. It might be around 12 digit number you can insert. Okay, so where in the 4 bytes. Now when I give for the age as int and 4 bytes over here, now for example, what can be the maximum age I can specify for any random person? Okay, so any random person, any data what I'm inserting over there, let's say into a particular table in a column over there, what can be the maximum number is, think of it. Okay, so it can be around like 100, or maximum how many years a person can live in the present generation, hardly 100, or people who live in certain areas where we can say it as 120. Okay, so we cannot see any other person who is having an age more than 120, right? So if in case if you know any of this knowledge, so there might be one or two people. Okay, but what is the maximum number? So this is here what we need to understand. What is the maximum number I want to insert within the age, which will be 120 will be the maximum number, right? But for the age, if I allocate a data type as int, and there is a person who is having an age as 120 or age as 30 or age as 40. Okay, so when 4 bytes of memory is allocated over here, this 120 into how many bytes I can insert this? This is first 1 byte, to second byte, third byte and fourth byte. So if 1 byte can hold a maximum number is 255, and if I insert any of the person age over there, what can be the maximum? 120. It will not exceed 120 for any person, right? So if I mention 120, in how many bytes I can insert? Just within 1 byte itself. In 1 byte, what is the maximum number I can mention? 255. Okay, but here 120 is the max for an age, which is less than 255 over here, right? So here if I am able to insert the data within 1 byte, and that too for every other person, I'm not talking about one or two, for every other person, let's say 1,50,000 records you inserted. Out of those 1,50,000 records, for each and every person in the age, I am able to insert the data within 1 byte itself, right? If I insert within 1 byte itself, what about the remaining 3 bytes? Okay, so this remaining 3 bytes, it's wasted. It's not dynamic here. Okay, memory is not allocated dynamically. It will allocate 4 bytes, constant static memory it will be allocated. Either you use it or not, it doesn't bother, but it will allocate 4 bytes for each and every record in that particular column. Likewise, if you see for 1,50,000 records, if you are wasting 3 bytes for each and every record, combiningly how much of memory you are wasting here, right? So this is the point where you will be using different flavors of integers. If you feel like the data what you are inserting in a column will not exceed 255, then simply instead of giving an int as a data type, I can give a data type as tiny int, so that I will insert the data within that 1 byte itself, and there is no wastage of memory for me, right? So this is what we can achieve by giving different flavors of integers for the columns case. Okay, likewise tiny int can hold a maximum number is which is 1 byte, and small int, how much memory it is allocated when you use small int is 2 bytes. Medium int will allocate 3 bytes of memory. Int will allocate 4 bytes of memory, and big int will allocate 8 bytes of memory. But for our better understanding what is int means, we can directly understand it's an integer data type. That's why we provided it as int. And also further learning, maximum hardly will insert 10 or 15 records, where the wastage of 3 bytes for 15 records, it's not a big deal. But when you deal with a very huge data over there, in those conditions you need to be more cautious about what is the data type you are specifying for a column. Okay, because there when you talk about lakhs or millions of the data, you should not waste the memory, guys. Okay, because memory is more crucial. Okay, so there you can use different flavors of this integer data types. These are for the whole numbers. For the whole numbers, these are the data types what we have, which are tiny int, small int, medium int, and the big int. Now the next one. So next in the numerical itself, whole numbers is one. Another type of data what I can insert which is numeric, fractions. Okay, so now fractions. To insert any fractions data over here, we have a data types like float, double, decimal. Okay, so these are the three different data types what I have for the fractions case. Okay, fractions means basically what kind of a data? 3.62 4354.814 32164.62154 1.83. So like this kind of a data, we'll call it as a fractions case. Okay, and in this, what is the thing, what is the point, what is the data you need to understand here? You have something called as decimal places. These are not whole numbers, where you will find decimal places for this data. Okay, 3.62 or 4354.84, all this you will find the decimal places over there. And to deal with the decimal places also, here we have three different data types. Like to deal with the integer data itself, how you have different flavors of integer, the same way here to deal with this in decimals data also, we have three different data types, which is float, double and decimal. Okay, and now what is the difference, we'll understand it. Okay, so if I give a data type as float, okay, so first one is float. Okay, if I give a data type as float over here, then what is the change or what is the data it takes over here is the maximum decimal places is max decimal places it can hold is 24. Okay, so maximum decimal places it can consider is 24 decimal places. Like for example, I'm inserting a data, or I'm extracting a data, importing the data over here. When it is happening over there, for a particular column you have a data type as float. When it is a float over there, what are the maximum decimal places it can take? 24 decimal places. Next one is double. Okay, so double, now double is the same way as the float itself, but only the difference over here is float can take a total decimal places of 24, double can take a complete total decimal places of 53. Okay, so for a column over here, I can give a column name, and also next I can give directly specify float. If I mention float, only the data type name over there, by default what can be the decimal places here is 24 for the float, and for the double it will be 53. But there are other cases also where I can use float. Like for example, I want only 2 decimal places. Okay, I don't want to have the default of 24 decimal places for a data. I just want only the 2 decimal places need to be inserted into the table. Let's say when I'm inserting the data, I'll give the data like this: 3.62 4354.814, next 32164.3.621, like this. Different size of this decimal places I'll give. But at last, when it is getting inserted into the table over there, I'll say that it should take only 2 decimal places. Okay, so then we can give something called as float 100 comma 2. Okay, so what this 100 comma 2 states over here is, let's understand it by giving a one example of one particular value. So 3262.12431. So this is the value what I am inserting, and I give float 100 comma 2. What this 100 states over here is, total digits. Next, what this two states over here is total decimal places. Okay, so total digits, how much you want, it will be 100 over here, means there is no limit for this value here. Even if you give 100 or 50 or 150 or 164 or whatever the length, okay, so whatever the length you want to give, you can specify over here. So here, what is this total digits over here is total length along with the main value, means the the total values over here, along with that decimal places, combining of all together what can be the total digits. You can specify a number over here, and there is no limit for this number case. Whatever the maximum length you want to give, you can specify over here. But when it comes to the decimal places, if I mention 2, it will take only 2 decimal places here. Means basically what it will do, it will round off. It will round off at 1, 2 itself. That is what this 2 states over here. And here for this, what is the maximum decimal places I can take when I give a data type as float? 24. Okay, if you directly mention only float, by default it will be 24 case. If not, I want only 2 decimal places, means then I can specifically mention like this. Okay, so this is how you can mention the float. And when I say 2 means not the total over there, it is the count. Total decimal places are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Total decimal places, total digits of 9 digits of number here, along with the decimal places, which is not exceeding 100. Okay, here only 9 values are there. But what is the maximum I specified? 100. Into here decimal places, how many are there? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 decimal values are there. Okay, in this I am rounding off it 2 decimal values itself. Okay, so for example, if I say I have a value as 4324.12531. Okay, so for this, round it off at 1 decimal place only, means 4324.1. so basically it will round off here. That is what float, and specifically if I mention a value, it will round off for those particular decimal places itself. Okay, so this is how float can be used. And what is the one more data type we have over here is double. Okay, so double and the float, these two are similar case. Only the difference is what is the maximum length or maximum decimal places you can consider. For the float, you can consider the maximum decimal places as 24. For the double, you can consider the maximum decimal places as 53. This is the only difference over there. And why I am saying remaining everything will be the same is the rounding off calculation. The rounding of calculation, let's say here I have a value as 462.1614. Like this I have the data. And if I say round it off for 1 decimal place, means 462.2 it might take. Means there is a rounding off calculation which will happen. So this rounding off calculation will be the same for the float and the double case. Okay, float and the double both will follow the same rounding off calculation. Okay, so next, decimal. So what is this decimal over here? When we have a data types as the float and the double, where they can hold the maximum decimal places of 24 or 53, then why this decimal? What is this data type? Another one which is called as decimal here means. So decimal is a data type which is used mostly Okay, mostly means mainly, maximum cases, whenever you are dealing with the currency related data. When you are dealing with the currency related data over here, then you need to use a data type called as decimal case. Why? Because what is the main advantage for the decimal is rounding off calculation is handled better. Okay, so rounding off calculation is handled better compared to float or double. So compared to float or double, rounding off calculation is taken well care by the decimal data type case. So that is the reason why it is provided for the currency related data. Okay, why means let's say 3.333, let's say 10 by 3, what it will be 3.333 like this here. So likewise you have the data like this, and this is the kind of a data which you have for 1 lakh records. Okay, you have this what you say, this values decimal places, and continuously it is going on, and you have this kind of a data for 1 lakh records. And when I say 1 lakh records are there like this, and if I round it off by using float or double, there might be a chance where I can lose some partial amount of value or the currency. So if I say 3.33, is it equal to 10? Okay, no, right? So I cannot say that it is the exact value. Okay, but we can make this issues clear, or we can handle these issues when you use a data type as decimal. And even for the decimal also, I can take the maximum what is a decimal places as what it can hold is 24 itself. But within that, rounding of calculation is different compared to the float and double. Okay, so even though if it is rounding off, let's say even if I mention decimal 100,2, then also it will round off the values at 2 itself. But what is the main thing you need to understand here is the calculation, the rounding of calculation, what it follows over there is different. Okay, so this is what the difference you have between the decimal or float and the double case. Okay, so float and the double will follow one particular rounding of calculation. Decimal will follow another rounding of calculation, which is mainly useful when you are dealing with the currency related data. Okay, so this is what the decimal data type you have. So total how many we have? For the integer data, we have the, I'll show it. See, for the integer data, we have tiny int, small int, medium int, and the big int. Okay, so these are all the 5 different data types for the integers. Next, for the fractions, I have float, double, and decimal. Okay, so these are the 3 different data types for the fractions over here, guys. So these are all the different data types what you have for the numerical data. Whole numbers different data types, and even for the fractions we have different data types over here. Okay, so now next, talking about the next data type, which is char or VARCHAR. So what is the difference here? So even if I mention char, I can insert the same data, or even if I mention VARCHAR also, I can insert the same data. But what is the difference over here for me? Means first we'll try to understand the what are the concepts or what and all the properties this char has. Char. So first one is we'll see the maximum character length. Okay, so what can be the maximum character length when you use a data type as char? Means 255. Okay, and next one is fixed memory allocation. Okay, so fixed memory allocation means a constant data or the space is allocated for each and every other record, guys. Okay, so here we'll try to understand this fixed memory allocation by one example. Let's say, for example, I have a column called as student name, and for which I gave a data type as char, and for the char I'll give it as 30 over here, and now I'll insert a name which is Siri. Okay, so I'm inserting a name as Siri over here. Now when I say Siri, what is the character length of the Siri? 4 character length, SIRI, 4 character length it is. Okay, but now when it is allocating the data, SIRI. So like this, out of the 30 character length, in how many character length I can insert the name Siri? Within 4 character length. When I able to insert the data into 4 character length, for this particular record, how much character length is wasted? 26. Okay, so what happens for this 26 character length spaces? It will still remain the same. Okay, so as I mentioned over there, char is a fixed character, fixed memory allocation. Okay, it will not change accordingly. It will allocate the same space no matter either you use it or not. It will allocate the same space. Okay, so that is what char will do, guys. Okay, so now let's say if I'm giving student name and I am inserting every other data which is between the character length of 5 or 6 itself. For every other record, the space will be wasted over there. Okay, it will not free up this particular space. It will be still keeping that particular space to the same record. Okay, so this is what char will do. Char will allocate the memory as a constantly. Okay, and this kind of an allocation, when it is useful is when you are trying to insert a fixed data into a column, guys. Okay, so any such data which is a fixed data over there, so that data can be alphanumerical or numerical also you can insert, guys. Okay, so just only the thing what you need to do is specify that in single or double quotations. Then whatever the data you mention, it will be considered into the character data. Okay, likewise, any examples which is having the fixed character length of this data type is, I'll say as PAN card number. It's an alphanumerical number and it will be the same length for each and every person. Okay, so next phone number, 10 character length. Next Aadhaar number. Okay, so this is also a particular fixed length, right? So when I mention the data or when I insert the data with this particular kind of a PAN card or phone number, also fixed character length, and I give a data type as char, what happens here? There will be no wastage of memory. Okay, so what happens? There is no wastage of the memory when I give a data type as char for this kind of a data. But there is no restriction that you need to give only char for the fixed data. Means no, you can give this data type for any column you want, either for student name or else for any other column which consists of the character data. You can give this data type as char, guys. Okay, so this is what char is. So this is the data type what we have is char, which will be allocating a fixed character length. Okay, fixed memory allocation over here. Next, talking about the another data type, which is VARCHAR. Okay, so we have char where, so in this memory allocation in this 255, I can insert whatever the data I want. Either it can be a character or else a string data or else an alphanumerical data or even a numerical data also. If I just mention that in single or double quotations, I can insert it. Okay, so this is what char is about. But what is the main drawback over here? There is a wastage of memory for me. Okay, so for which columns it is recommended, which the data or the column which consists of a constant data, for those particular columns you can give a data type as char. Okay, but there is no restriction here. It's a recommendation that it is flexible, or it is best to give those data types for those columns. Why? Because if you give this data type char for any other columns, there might be some sort of wastage of memory for each and every record over there. Okay, that is why we'll give this data type char for a fixed character length data. Okay, so next, in VARCHAR, now talking about the next data type, which is VARCHAR over here. Maximum character length will be 16,384. Okay, what does the 16,384 means? The length of the letters or words or a sentence, that it should not exceed 16,384, and maximum what I can, how much it is in VARCHAR, 16,384. So in the older versions of this SQL, so in this older versions of this MySQL workbench, so for the VARCHAR also it used to be 255 itself, but now when it comes to the newer versions, okay, hardly 5 to 6 versions older from that particular point, they changed it. They changed the maximum character length for the VARCHAR to 16,384. So this is 16,384 will also include 0, guys. Okay, so 0, from 0 if you start, what is the maximum length I can give? 16,383. Okay, so maximum character length is 16,384. And next one is, next point about the VARCHAR is dynamic memory allocation. Okay, so dynamically the memory is allocated when you use a VARCHAR, guys. Okay, and what is meant by this dynamic memory allocation is, for example, let's say for the same student name column itself, I have a data type which is provided as VARCHAR now. Okay, VARCHAR, and I'll give it as 30. Okay, so 30 I'll give, and next I'll insert the same name, Siri. Okay, if I insert the name as Siri over here, how the memory is allocated when you use a data type as VARCHAR is, SIRI. Okay, only 4 character length space which is required, that is the only data or the space which is allocated for this record. Then what happened to the remaining 26 character length space? Means it will free up that particular space. Means basically what is the main advantage you can say for the VARCHAR is no wastage of memory. Okay, so what is this? No wastage of memory. Why there is no wastage? Because the memory allocation is performed or happening dynamically when you use VARCHAR, guys. And this Varchar can be specified for any column you want. Either let's say the student name, or else first name or last name, or else let's say course details, or any other address, any details or any columns you can specify. Main advantage for the varchar is there will be no wastage, and whatever the data you can able to insert by using the char, the same kind of data you can also able to insert by varchar. But what is the main difference? Fixed memory allocation for the char, dynamic memory allocation for the varchar. This is the main difference between these two data types. Okay, so no wastage, and for what kind of a data means anytime, any kind of a data you can insert. There is no specific thing that you need to give only for a particular column. There is no such thing over here. Whatever the column you want, you can specify the varchar. Okay, so advantage for the varchar, we mentioned that there is no wastage. But what about this char? Okay, we only talked spoke about the disadvantages, which is wastage of memory. But is there any kind of advantage for the char? Means yes, there is also one sort of advantage for the char, which is, okay, I'll mention it here. Fetching the data is faster in char compared to varchar. Means when you are fetching the data, if a column consists of, let's say here itself you have an example of the student name, right? Student name, for in one table I gave a column as student name and a data type as char. In another table I gave a table as student name and a data type as varchar. Now when I execute or when I fetch the data, let's say I want only the student name details from the table, and I am fetching that student name details from the table with the data type as char, then fetching means when it is extracting or fetching the data from the table, means showing the data for you, how much time it is taking. Okay, so that is called as the fetching time. Okay, so now when you open your workbench, so at the right side, complete right side at the bottom, you can see duration or fetch. So this is where it will show how much time it is consuming to execute that command. That is what called as a fetch time over here. So this fetch timing over here, so it will be faster when you use char when it compares to the varchar. Means char will fetch the data faster compared to the varchar. But why it is char? Okay, why can't be varchar? Because dynamic memory allocation is happening. So how much space is required? Only that certain space has been provided for the each and every particular records. And why char is able to print the data or fetch the data faster compared to the varchar means it's a simple logic. When you search for a data in the student name, okay, so with the character data type, each and every record, how much will be the character length over there, or else the memory allocation length for each and every record? It will be the same. Okay, so it will be the same. So if I check for first record, how much length I need to check? For 30 length. Second record 30 length, fourth record 30 length, fifth record 30 length, like that. For each and every other record, I'll check with the constant length for the data. But when it comes to the varchar, here dynamically the memory is allocated. So for one record, I'll fetch the data for what is a 4 character length. For another record, I'll fetch the data for 6 character length. For another record, I'll fetch the data for 2 character length. So here what is happening? The character length is differing here and there. It's not constant. That is the reason why char will give you the data faster compared to the varchar, guys. This is the advantage for what? This is the advantage for char, and this is the advantage for VARCHAR. Okay, so these are the two different data types. Even though if I'm able to insert the same data either using char or varchar, why we have two different data types and what is the differences between this? Okay, so these are the type of the questions which are mainly important for your people when you go to the interviews also, guys. So you might get a question like, what is the difference between a char and varchar? If I'm able to insert the same data either using char, I can insert the student details, or else a certain data I can also insert the same kind of data by using varchar also. But what is the difference? This is what the main difference is. Okay, fixed memory allocation is the main difference, you can say. And if they ask you what is the advantage for the char, means char will fetch the data faster compared to the varchar. Now what is the advantage for the varchar? Means no wastage of memory. Okay, so these are the two different data types what you have here to insert the character data, guys. So next data type is date data. So date data, we have data types like date, date time, next time, timestamp, year. Okay, so these are the four different data types what we have in the date over here. So now first one is date. So basically when you give a data type as date, you can insert a data which is of date data type, and in which format. Format is important here for the date case. Okay, in which format the data need to be represented for the date data in SQL is year, next small hyphen, not a, it's a dash, okay, a small minus symbol type. Okay, so year, month, day. So this is the format in which the data need to be there when the data is inserting into the servers from the SQL. Okay, in SQL you will have the data in this format case. It's not day, month and the year. It will be year, month and the day when you deal with the data or this day data using SQL, guys. And here the date data also, you need to either specify that in single or double quotations here. Next, the date time, the same, year, month, day. Next, give us one space, okay, give a little space, okay, so one space over here, and then you can continue with hearts, minutes, seconds. So this is the format in which you need to insert the data. And for the time data, it should be 24-hour format, guys. Okay, you can insert the data in 24-hour format. So this is date time, you need to insert like this. If it's only time, just only hearts, colon. So here it's a colon, not a hyphen over there. So it should be colon over here, hearts, minutes, seconds. There is a format in which you need to insert the data when you use a time data type. Next, timestamp. What is meant by this timestamp? When you have a data type as time, I can insert the time. But what does this timestamp again means here is, this is the data or the data type which is used to insert the data in UTC format case. What? In UTC format means universal time coordinated. So for overall country wise we have different timings, but globally if you check, you will have one particular timing which we'll call it as universal time coordinated. Okay, so we used to also call it as Greenwich Mean Time in the past. Okay, now we are calling it as universal time coordinated over there, which is a globally one common timing. Okay, our Indian timing is plus 5.5 hours. Okay, so Indian timing will be, so for the UTC time, if you add plus 5.5 hours, that will be the Indian timing. So it's all about the geographically, there will be a land, Greenland, right? So to all the Greenland, the day timing will be plus, and left side to the Greenland all minus 5.5 hours or minus 1.5 hour. That is what the time is distributed over here. Okay, but universally if you check, you have one common timing which we'll call it as universal time coordinated. So you can simply check with this in your browser. So in your browser, if I just type UTC time now. So what is the UTC time now? 8:37 AM. Okay, so if you add plus 5.5 hours for this 8:37 AM, so you will get the Indian timing. Okay, so here itself you see. So what is UTC time for India? UTC plus 5.5 hours. Okay, so that is what the time stamp means. Time stamp means I can insert the data in a universal timing, and where it is mostly or mainly used is when the data is getting inserted from different countries. Okay, so from different countries, let's say from England one person is inserting the data, and from India one more person is inserting the data over here, but both. So now exactly now if I insert the data without using timestamp, that at the time how much it will insert? It will insert the time as 2:08. Now it's exactly at this particular situation, what is a point itself, one person from England, if he is inserting the data, he might have a different time. He might have a time as 9 AM or 9:15 or 9:10 AM. But it doesn't mean that he has inserted somewhere in the morning. Okay, so both are inserted at the same time, but local timing will be different. Okay, so not to have these type of confusions between the data for the timing, then we can use timestamp, which will take the common timing over there, universal time coordinated. Within this format, the time will be stored when you use timestamp case. That is what timestamp. Next, year means basically only the year data you can insert, and this can be 4 digits or 2 digits. Either it can be 4 digits or 2 digits over here. Like I can insert a data like 2013, or I can also insert a data like 13. Okay, so if I say, if I'm inserting the data in 2-digit format over here, and if I say 13, it doesn't mean that can I take it as 1913? No. So when you are inserting a 2-digit numbers, what is the year which is the latest year which can end with the 2 digits? That is the year which you need to consider. Okay, if I mention 03, what is the latest year which ends with 03? 2003. Okay, so this is how you can insert the data, either in the 2 digits you can insert, or either in the 4 digits. So but how come I can insert the data which is of 1903, like 1903? If I want to insert the data like this, means don't take 2 digits, take the data in 4 digits itself. While you are specifying the data type over here, you give an year and you can specify 4 digits over here, so that it can take 4 digits. So you can insert 1903 or you can insert 2003, whatever the years you want, you can insert the data in 4 digits, which will have more clarity in that. Okay, 4 digits is the one which is preferable, so that you can understand the years clearly. Okay, so these are all the different data types what you have over here, guys. What and all the different data types we learned now, which are numeric, character, and the date. These are the 3 different type of data types what we have understood, or what we have learned, or what it is explained here. So in the numeric, we have the whole numbers. So for the whole numbers also, we have different flavors of integers which are tiny int, small int, medium int, and big int. Okay, so next for the fractions. So to insert any fractions data, we have three different data types which are float, double and decimal. Okay, so next for the character data. So for the character data, so we have two different data types which are char and varchar. So the same kind of a data we can insert either using char or varchar, but there is a difference between those two data types, which is char will allocate a fixed character length data. Varchar will be allocating dynamically. So the memory allocation or the space allocation will perform dynamically in varchar. What is the advantage for the char means? Fetching the data is faster in the char compared to the varchar. What is the advantage for the varchar? No wastage of memory. Okay. So next one is date data types. In the date, we have different data types like date time, date, or else time, timestamp, year. And in which format you need to have the data to be inserted when you use date? It should be year, month and the day. So it's not day, month and the year. I'm again clearly saying it. So the data should be in the format of year, month and the day. And even character data or the date data. So here single double quotations or single quotations you need to use. And even to insert the date data also, you can use double quotations or single quotations. This is the way how you can insert the data when you use char or date. Okay, so these are all the different most commonly used data types what we have, guys. That's wrap for this chapter, guys. So let's meet in next episode for this SQL series.